Nick here at IBM Innovate 2014 in Orlando, Florida at the Liberty Racetrack. What does that mean? I'm going to find out right now, talking with Tom, who's holding a car in his hand. First, explain what you do in IBM.
So I'm the Technical Evangelist for WebSphere application server Liberty Profile. So my job, it's an awesome job, is to come up with really cool and innovative new uses for our software to just show people, what it's capable of, what they can do with it, just to try and make them think outside the box than just, I can just run a website with your software. And one of the examples I've got is these race cars which you can drive using it. So that's what I do. Very
cool. So explain to me from concept to implementation. Where did this all begin?
So we started last year for a conference at the end of April, and we needed to come up with something cool that was going to get developers' attention. My boss loves cars, so that set me on to, well, maybe I could control a car with our software. At that time, the Raspberry Pi had just come out. It was hot off the press, It was flying off the shelves. We'd got maybe 10 or 12 in the lab, which we managed to scrounge together from various people. And we were trying to, firstly, find out what is the slowest thing that can run our software. And a Raspberry Pi turned out to be too fast. So we still haven't been able to find something that's slow enough that can't run it. And what we did is we thought, well, what if we could drive a car using our software with a Raspberry Pi in the middle? So that's what we did. So I worked with two of my colleagues, one who's a very good electrical engineer, and he figured out exactly how to control the motors from software. And then another one of my colleagues is very good with user interfaces, and he designed a really cool user interface to be able to drive the cars. It took us about a week to put it all together, from conception to working car. And we're here now a year and a half later, and we've got an even better car. So on this car, we've added some sensors so it can avoid itself, stop itself from crashing into walls. It's aware enough when it crosses finish lines, so it can detect when it's crossed a finish line. And so we've made these cars as smart as we can make them, or smarter at least, and they don't quite drive themselves.
Fair enough. Now, how easy was it to really use the IBM technology to make this a reality?
So it's incredibly easy from my point of view, because I've worked on the Liberty team before, so I have a slight advantage over people, but at the same time, it's incredibly easy code. There's less than 1,000 lines of Java involved here, maybe 45 lines of C code that's running in our microcontroller for our sensors. It's all very basic Java and Java EE, nothing too advanced. And if people want to be able to look at the code we've got, it's on our website, which is wasdev.net, and if they search for car on the site, then they'll be able to look at the code themselves and see it really is very, very basic Java code that's running on there.
Very cool. Now let's quickly jump over to controlling the actual car. How does that look like? How easy is it to really manipulate the movements on the track?
So the way you control the car is through a JavaScript web page. We wanted to have something that was universal, that any device can use. You don't need to install any apps. You don't need to have a specific operating system. We just want to show people the versatility you get out of using something like an application server like the Liberty Profile, because it just serves web pages. So you get a JavaScript web page up, and it's much like a laptop touchpad that you see as a little black square. You can drag your finger over the square, and that controls the steering and the speed. So you can steer any angle you want to, left or right, and you can go at any speed within the controlled limits, forwards and backwards with the car in real time. So the latency we're seeing is maybe 50 milliseconds, 200 milliseconds worst case if the sensor's going crazy because you're about to crash, and it's slowing the car down for you. But it's very, very responsive, and it's all over Wi-Fi, so there's a good range in it as well.
Really cool. Now, what kind of limitations are we looking at as far as what the car can't do? What's our limit on the platform? What stops you from really pushing this thing further?
So we don't have any computation limits. We're only using maybe 30-40% of the CPU, and that's with all the sensors going crazy all the time. We're using maybe 60 megabytes of memory, which on the 512 meg Raspberry Pis is, we've got loads of spare there. The limitation is how much time I can put into it. So we can add more sensors. We can have an array of sensors around the car so that it can drive itself, so that it can avoid crashes from any direction. At the moment, it's very limited because it's a very narrow field of view from the sensors at the front. So it's literally a limitation on my imagination and the amount of time I can put into coding these.
So let's speak on your imagination. What's next for this car? What's next for this whole entire thing of sensing a finish line and racing? And I saw a scoreboard up there earlier. Where are we going with this?
So the next feature I want to add is I do want to add more sensors around the car so they can have a car racing on its own, and then if you've got a human racing it, the automated car will try and avoid crashes, try and overtake you, maybe even get in your way, whatever it feels it needs to do to be able to win. So trying to get the cars so they can be automated would be really cool for me. I want to be able to track where the cars are in the track in a 2D space. At the moment, They know if there's something in front of them, but they don't really know where they are. So if we can get the cars to figure out where they are on the track, and then we can have people write their own AIs, upload their own AIs to the cars. So we've got a game which lets you write AIs for driving cars around the track already, called Code Rally. And that's an open source game that I'm also lead project manager for. So hopefully having a bit of convergence between those two projects, so you can be playing the Code Rally game, writing your AIs, driving cars around in a virtual world, and then when you've got one of these near you, you can just upload the AI to the car, and then the car can be driving around with the AI you've just written in the game.
Very cool. Well, Tom, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for taking a minute to talk to me about this really cool stuff. And if you want more from IBM Innovate 2014 in Orlando, you can check out f5live.tv.